Hi, thank you all for being here, and thank Cameron and the rest of the folks here who put on the convention. It's been great. I'm Deborah Simpier. I'm one of the co-founders of Althea, and I'm really excited to share with you a little bit about how Althea works and some of the networks we've been working on building in the US and across the world, actually. So excited about that. So Althea simply is, it empowers people to be able to earn money automatically by forwarding bandwidth to their neighbors. And I was kind of hoping to kind of share a little bit about how that works in the context of some of the networks that are on the ground and are working right now. So this is Klatskanai. This is a little a rural community that I live in. I've lived in there for about the last 13 years. And it's very much like other rural communities where the geography of the area can be very challenging. There's lots of hills, very tall kind of Douglas fir trees, very much what you would think of for the Northwest. Smaller population, around 2,000 people. And like many rural communities, they suffer from lack of access. Oftentimes we see less than a megabit per second or no connectivity at all. And oftentimes that's also because cost is a barrier, right? So if all that's available is satellite internet or cellular connected internet, then it can be $150 or $200 a month. And for a lot of folks, that's really just not even accessible. And it isn't like other options haven't been already tried here. In fact, there is some fiber in this area. There's a cable connection. There is already a wireless internet service provider. And about 5 years ago, there was a grant given to the incumbent carrier for about $1 million to build out to about 470 homes. But what happened here is, and I think in a lot of the cases with many types of these sort of granting programs, is there's no sort of incentive to continue to provide better access or to upgrade the equipment. So they did build out to a few homes and it did improve access for some, but over time the equipment began to deteriorate and the incumbent provider sold out to a larger carrier who had even less incentive to provide connectivity to people. So 5 years forward from that grant, we were in the exact same position that we were in prior to receiving that $1 million. And $1 million to connect, 470 households is also quite a bit of money. So, we see that there really isn't the long-term solution to these problems. But lack of connectivity really isn't the whole story here. In fact, many people do have good access because there is fiber running through some parts of the area. So then it becomes, how do we take the high-speed bandwidth from one area and almost bandwidth arbitrage it to folks that don't have it in the outlying area? So there's a better way. Instead of one company owning all of the assets and having to build down from a very top-down perspective, many different people can own a piece of hardware and leverage their private property, their homes, their businesses, and farms, and earn money while doing so. So here on the, I guess it's what is my right, there's an antenna of what we call a relay. So this is a person in the community, and his name is Matt. He's receiving connection from a high-speed fiber connection in town. That's that top antenna. And then the bottom antenna provides connectivity to about 4 or 5 of his neighbors. And both of those antennas are connected to an Althea flash router in his home, which provides him his connectivity, so he's able to watch movies and do his normal internet connection. And then the Althea router also does all of the billing of the network and then also does the routing as well. So just one box in the home, a couple simple antennas. And this gear here is altogether around $200. So it's very accessible for people to be able to set these up and provide connectivity. And what's kind of exciting is you see these folks that have these relays, they'll go and promote the network. So we have this sort of natural viral network effect. Matt, in fact, every Saturday takes a nice bottle of red wine, maybe keeps a white wine too for other folks, and then knocks on his neighbor's door, tells them about the internet connectivity, and then he's able to make more money. And this lets us also sort of lower the build-out cost because each person is providing some piece of the internet infrastructure, instead of a large top-down company coming in and providing all the infrastructure. This is also supported with a local group of what we call organizers. So these people here are able to provide customer support, talk about the network, and help relays decide, what kind of antennas they need and how to get those installed. And those folks also earn an incentive as well in a form of what we call a monthly subscription fee that's also automatically deducted from the routers. So here you can see the map of what this looks like when it's all kind of built out. You can see the different colors indicate different relays, or these are different people that own hardware and have connected neighbors. And the routes are selected, and this is really exciting, right? Not only based on the best round trip time, the best quality connection, but also the lower cost. So you can find that no one of these relays here, like this picture here, there's another relay here, can get too greedy. They can't continue to raise the price and get more and more customers and become more and more centralized, because someone else can come in and provide another relay, and your connection, your router in your home is going to automatically route on a second-by-second basis to whoever is both the lower cost and the best quality. And then there's some sort of optionality around that too. In your home router dashboard, there's a slider that has lower cost on one end and higher quality on the other. So you have some control about your choices of internet, and then your router then decides which connection is going to fulfill that best. Another sort of piece of this system is what we call the exit node, which is just kind of like a VPN, or it's a server at a data center that allows all of the routes within the local network to be encrypted. So folks that are reselling bandwidth to their neighbor don't have to worry about their neighbor looking at their data, right? And this also allows us to verify the routes that each of the relays are advertising. So no one relay can pretend to be cheaper than the others or have better quality, and if in fact they are not. And this whole system is prepaid. People pay in advance by loading a stable currency onto their router. And then it routes to the upstream providers, the different relays within the network automatically. So there's Linda, and if you remember from the slide before, there was this sort of like connection way out there in the valley, and this is her. She has a farm. This is kind of a little bit larger connection dish on the top there than she would normally have, and then those two smaller antennas connect her neighbors, about 6 or 7 neighbors there in the area, and then some of those neighbors have actually gone on to resell other bandwidth as well. And those are all kind of routed with cables into her just normal Linksys Althea router in her home that provides her internet connectivity, and about $50 a month extra on top of what she's already offsetting her cost of usage as well. And so yeah, so she'll go and she'll tell her neighbors about the internet, and they'll get connected up and she'll earn money automatically. And that's kind of what you can see on the below her there is what like the Ether scan or what would look like if she was earning money in Ethereum, which early on that's what we were using. So here's some of Linda's connected neighbors. The one on the right, I guess that would be your left, is Clark, and he actually went on to provide more relays as well. So we have some that are several hops deep now. And then we have Bruce there in the middle, and then the one at the top right, I don't have a picture for her, but that's Beatrice. And this is one of these stories I think that kind of bring home why it's so exciting what we do. Her and her family had no internet connectivity for over 4 years before we were able to provide her connection. And she's a high school student who was staying after school or having to go to the library to use the internet. And her folks worked 2 jobs, so that meant that they weren't seeing their children. That not having any internet connectivity meant that their family was not spending time together. So I remember the day when we hooked her up, and she comes out with her laptop and she's holding it, and she said, "This is the best day ever." And being able to like impact people and really change their lives is one thing that internet connectivity can really do. And I think that's one of the reasons too we see that a lot of the relays not only are able to kind of grow the network virally because of the financial incentives, but because of that feeling of ownership. Because they not only are getting money, they also have a choice, and they have that piece of the internet that they own and have a say in. So kind of to get back to the routing protocol as well, this is an example of a redundant link. So if you have two antennas that are connected to more than one upstream relay provider, of course that's going to connect to whoever is the lower cost or better quality depending on the end consumer's choice. But this also allows for redundancy. So if either one of these connections were to go down, see if you can see the kind of purple link, they both link back to a central location. If either one of those connections were to go down, then the whole network can instantaneously route through the other connection. So this allows for us, especially as we add in more resilience and redundancy to the network, to have a failover. So it's not just for rural areas as well. One of the things that's been interesting about my journey kind of building other networks is that we kind of take for granted that urban areas in the United States should have good connectivity. But in fact, it really isn't the case. So this is Tacoma, Washington. We set up a network here in the community of Hilltop. And this is, so Tacoma, if you don't know, is a little bit south of Seattle. Has about 250,000 people there. And when we started doing outreach in this community, we found that many people only had 8 to 10 megabits per second. And they had a few choices of connectivity, but they were both expensive and then also slow, right? So they weren't really good choices. And then we also found too that low-income families would have trouble even connecting to the choices that were available because it wasn't it was on a monthly basis, and then if they fell behind in their bill, they would lose connectivity altogether. So we recently launched this network, and what's kind of exciting about this network as well is that we were able to bring in some of the newer technology with 60 gigahertz and millimeter wave antennas. So these folks are seeing 200-300 megabits per second and above, using their Althea routers to forward bandwidth to their neighbors. And in fact, one of our relays there, David, has about 50% take rate on his block. He really went and told all of his neighbors about it, and we have almost his whole block built out with Althea routers and these great 60 gigahertz antennas. And then there in the middle, you can see this is B. B is the organizer in the area. That's that Tacoma Cooperative network. So if there is any problems or the relays need help with their build out, they can call B, and B gets about $10 a month from every subscriber on the network. And beyond the US, we have some really exciting things happening in the rest of the world. This is Abuja, Nigeria, and this family here is Usman. And Usman's going to be a relay as well. He owns an apartment complex, and so he'll be able to put some gear on the roof and forward bandwidth to his neighbors. One of the things that's really exciting about our developing world networks is that we are working on a router to mobile device app, so that in the sort of, Abuja is a mix of middle class folks and some lower income folks, and they kind of live side by side. So it works really well. If you have a little bit more money, you can get an Althea router and we have these really cool inexpensive radios for about $30. And you put that on your roof and you can resell to nearby homes and businesses. But not only that, but if you have some lower income folks in your area, they can connect with their mobile phones to their Wi-Fi hotspot. And then they can earn money from that as well. So the payment is prepaid digital currency. Very early on, I learned that folks may be a little bit more timid about using the words cryptocurrency and preferred digital currency and a payment app. And when you provide them with some kind of easy to digest, understandable terms like that, it actually became very easy to get everybody set up, from senior citizens to younger people. And in fact, in the network in Oregon, I think it's maybe over a third of senior citizens, and they're able to easily get on their phone and use the Coinbase app, or we just recently are coming out with a Wire widget, which allows people to use Google Pay or Apple Pay right there from their phone as well. So that looks very, very seamless. So people here, in this case, this is Chris here on the right-hand side. So what he'll do is he'll buy $50 worth of Ethereum. It's easy to get. and then send it to his router dashboard by scanning a QR code. And then the router bridges it to a stable currency called XDAI, although I think we'll be moving to multi-collateral DAI pretty soon as well. So that stays stable to the dollar. And then when he's low on his balance, a text message will inform him it's time to top up again. So very much kind of like the prepaid phone system used to be back in the day. So to scale and to go on, we've created an onboarding program that we call Althea. So when someone wants to bring one of these networks to their community, they can start with a website there on our althea.net site and pre-register folks that are interested. So you got the community support, you get people interested ahead of time, and then you can sort of build out when the time comes. So this is how internet is sold now, right? Legacy internet. You buy one subscription to one service provider, and that's the one you have for probably years, right? People don't change their internet service provider that often, and so you're sort of siloed by the ownership there. You can't. There's no incentive to continue to provide you better service or lower prices. But Althea basically creates one open network of many different providers so that you can get the fastest and cheapest connection on a second-by-second basis. And we think that's what will really revolutionize the way that bandwidth is bought and sold and people have internet connectivity. And that's it. And I'm for questions. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Deborah. Okay. We actually had a couple of minutes more, but we can dedicate that to questions, which is even better. So do you guys have any questions for Deborah? Yes.
Sorry, I am familiar a little bit with Althea. Thank you for the great project. It's very, so it's a great use case, great purpose. So as far as like adoption, I know you talked about the scaling aspect. As far as adoption, is there anything more than word of mouth that's happening to help bring about your use case, to bring about people knowing about your project?
Yeah, so right now, when you see these networks are because there are people that have come to us, and we also are working with Republic. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're able to grant some of our Althea tokens in exchange for folks learning about the project and starting their own networks. And
Are you talking about Republic, the early stage startup?
Yeah, Republic's like a crowdfunding. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's the one. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So if you go to republic.co/Althea, you can learn about our project, you can start a network in your area, and that's it's kind of like the boot camp of Althea to start a network in your area. One of the other kind of exciting things that we're working on is finding different ways to get that initial connectivity to your community. That's what we call a fiber backhaul, right? So whatever that point is that it intersects with the rest of the internet. Now, traditionally, that's sold on a lease. It's kind of expensive. It's a long-term commitment type of thing. But some exciting work we've been doing with some municipalities in Oregon and some other sort of larger middle-mile wholesale carriers is that they're going to be plugging in Althea onto their networks themselves. Like many cities own networks, electrical co-ops do, and so they're going to, when they come on board, that'll let us onboard people much faster.
So you're talking about maybe more of a localized cell carrier? Is that what you're talking about?
That's one. Yeah, we were definitely having some early conversations with some of the more national type levels, but even on a more regional level too, having conversations with universities. I mean, y'all have a really nice pointy thing here over there. You put an antenna on it. Be a great place to start a network.
So my question is, I was trying to be a good student, but what stablecoin did you say needs to be topped up in order to utilize the service, the stablecoin?
So right now, the transactions are actually in XDAI, which is like a sidechain of the POA, the Proof of Authority Network. But you can buy Ethereum, and it bridges to XDAI. So because Ethereum is a little easier to get. Now, because DAI itself is moving to multi-collateral DAI. I think the plan is to upgrade right to MCD from XDAI now. So we'll be so that's kind of what we're working on right now is just so that people can just buy DAI or Ethereum and it bridges to DAI.
Okay, so if I'm the person in my community that wants to start this, I use my regular internet service and connect this Althea network to it, and then I disseminate the internet to my neighbors. Do I still have to keep paying Spectrum $200 a month on top of? That's what I'm trying to find out.
Yeah, so someone needs to get, at some point in time in the network, you have to get what they call a wholesale internet connection. So the internet that we get normally today, right, is last mile access. It is from Spectrum or CenturyLink or whatever. But there's another sort of class of internet providers that provide wholesale connection, and oftentimes that's also cities or electrical companies too, that have fiber assets that resell that. So there's kind of two ways that people in communities do that. One, we partner with the municipality or the local carrier that has wholesale internet, or we buy it on a lease base. So somebody in the community does need to get a connection to the rest of the internet, but typically that's done on a wholesale basis. So it's resellable. So you're not having to deal with any of that sort of terms of service.
How do your speeds compare to like 5G? And do you have like the same customer base as 5G companies? And if so, how do you plan to compete with them?
So 5G typically refers to like the protocol and the millimeter wave we were looking at in the Takoma network. So we're basically using the same technology and servicing the same customers, right? So it's going to be in customers, just regular people that are normally getting internet through like fixed broadband right now. So there's a couple different reasons why we're competitive. Because of the automatic switching, we always have an incentive to provide the best quality internet and the least expensive. So we always think it'll most likely be a faster and cheaper connection that they're seeing with with Verizon or CenturyLink or a centralized service. And our speeds are basically comparable to what Verizon or CenturyLink can do with the same technology. And then what was the second question? Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, like do you have the same customer base? And you answered that, so yeah. Thank you.
Do you have any hope for the future that like you might someday bypass the wholesale ISPs altogether and go straight to like a Google database or like an Amazon Web Services, so like they could host directly to provide service directly to Althea?
Yeah, so the next kind of layer up, so if we were talking about these kind of middle mile or regional carriers, they connect back to the internet at a data center, like an IX, and then from there, carriers, what they call peer, which is essentially just making handshake agreements that people can work over the same networks. And so, I think that as we grow, we see that not only these organic networks will come up, but other providers will connect in as well. And so yes, then the point where we're all entering together in. So your provider, your middle mile provider and your last mile provider will all be using Althea, and then at some point it'll connect back to the IX. Right, the internet exchange, where essentially it's done the same way with BGP routing and peering, right?
Last question, guys. Sorry, very quick also. Thanks.
So could you explain a bit more about how the blockchain or the digital currency is improving your service? Because I'm very new to this area, so I couldn't get a clear view of how using blockchain or digital currencies like helping your business.
So was the question, how does blockchain help our business?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so it enables us to be able to do peer-to-peer transactions, microtransactions, and we could set this whole system up with peer-to-peer microtransactions with a centralized database using like Hyperledger or some other project like that, and then partner with Visa or MasterCard. But that doesn't create this sort of neutral platform where many different entities can participate And I think that that's the power of blockchain, is that sort of neutral payment protocol that many different entities can adopt, whether they're in Abuja, Nigeria, or they're in the United States, or they're in Guyana, where we hope to be soon.
All right, thanks, Deborah. Thank you very much.